Welcome to TradeTheMBI.com. This is John's reports for the 17th. Well, we had a nice turnaround move as Magenta was over MBI White there, and then it popped above that 10, and you can see the critical difference. I mean, it really drives the push. Of course, we weren't expecting much, well, at least no real ability to get over the 23% at this particular stage, but this gives it some momentum now. And critically, orange having dipped below green here in this particular case, almost below the red, pretty close, and that would signal potential turnaround. But of course, you're looking at a shakeout that really needs to improve quite a bit more in order to get out of this malaise, so to speak. And it's just a soft consolidation. This is just a market realization, as we've been talking about, that it's going to take longer for some of the turnaround moves that Trump is making this time around for them to take effect. Because when you're talking about changing industrial production and moving things towards that, that's years. It's not going to happen in short order. And while some production can be increased, it's like even when it comes to the steel and things, uh, you only have so much capacity right now, and even if you all of a sudden ramp that up, you're going to end up with shortages. And if you want to build new factories and things, where you're going to get all the steel from? You're going to have to import it. So, there are problems with a lot of those scenarios that go in there, but it just depends on how broad based they are. If it's more directed, you're only going to get segmental effects. But the critical one is still oil, and that isn't really moving enough. From an NQ standpoint, a lot stronger. Will it be able to get over that 23%? See, you'll go to the DOC and say no. Unless we get a strong dip below and you get a move back up. I mean, even the shakeout is even worse for the NASDAQ. So again, we're still sort of caught in between that. Now, if we can get to the 23% at that particular stage and you see the dip take place, there's the chance, but unlikely without a reset of steel, or at least has to move above the 13.5 to make it effectively coming from underneath. So those are the things to watch for on the daily. It hasn't happened yet, and of course treasuries. And this is part of that. It's amazing how every other day was the Fed this, the Fed that. Now we don't even hear about the Fed. It's like non-existent. And there's what I'm talking about from oil. It's just trapped in there. And this again too gets back to that whole regulations and the uh, constraints that were placed on. And even if you do get more oil pumping, I don't know that you have the refinery capacity these days because of all the environmental restrictions that were set up. You've set up permanent restrictive potential. And unless that's changed, and it's going to take years to change that, because you just don't build, processing refineries overnight and things like that. So, while it's still in a negative run here, Magenta still leads, so it's still going to keep pushing up against that 23%. Gonna have a tough time breaking it with MBI White leading on there, but all the things are looking for it to try and get past that level, and that's problematic because as soon as you see oil back in the 70s, you're no better off than you were before. And that's just the straight up of it. The euro is still riding high on this idea that the eurozone has come together as a bloc, and they are now resurgent and going to take on America. And, yeah, they're already talking about putting troops in the ground in Ukraine and stuff. So this is going to be a short-lived setup for them, but they will spend trillions to try and accomplish whatever it is they're trying to accomplish. Gold right at that 3,000 levels, but it did break the critical level, so now it's just a matter of it's got to consolidate within that and push through it, and particularly if oil starts rising. I think you'll see that breakout clean above it. Bitcoin still not as bad as ETH is, but certainly still. Um, just caught in this transitional period, and a lot of market movers just not really certain where to go at this particular stage until things start to flesh out. And you know, the euphoria of thinking everything was going to happen as quickly as it did in the first term, and that it's a lot more complicated now than it was before. And I think that we're starting to see that that's going to take well into the middle of the year before you even begin to see some things. I mean, optimism obviously is an important element, but you haven't made the transition yet, and you can see ETH is just also caught in the continuation zone. No changes there. This is a really important one to see from the DOC standpoint on that. We had talked about this the day before, was the MBI white, but the magenta had taken the lead, and that's a short cover rally. And well, lo and behold, we got the short cover, got up to the 50%, faded off a little bit, but MBI white completely collapsed within that. And then as soon as the turnaround back of magenta, you started your next wave, and that drove all the way to the top. A lot of positive extremes within that. So you would go back to this one right here, and that gives you the low right around 47 range. We're at 64 now, off almost 30 at this particular stage. So it's likely they'll fill back those in between. But you can see how it started out in the morning. The brief dip, put buyers got excited there, and then they flipped them around, and the calls took over. And then right as the market was ending, you faded it back down. So again, from an options player, bookmaker, he was happy. We had plenty of volatility both up and down. It was easy to keep things in balance despite the volatility range. So that's exactly what they look for. Here we are in the European session, a slight build back from the lows that we had before. But could be a little bit of a soft period now, so we could see a move down towards that 51 range. So we'll keep an eye on that one. But all in all, I think that everything's still progressing, and it's just one of those difficult situations where things aren't going to go as fast as people had envisioned, and that's going to cause disruption as far as how things play out. But I don't think the volatility is going to stop, because uncertainty always breeds that, and most people like to be on the sideline in uncertainty. They get scared, and people are afraid. They pause. And that's the real impact, because you got to make sure they don't pause on the consumer side, because that's when you get recession. So we don't want to talk about that yet. Not quite there. As always, though, anything relevant, I'll put it in the Skype chat. Have a good one. Trade well.